So thank you for joining us today for our webinar about our brand new Aging in Place cohort. This is just going to be an informational webinar to let you know about our cohort and what we have planned and how to apply. We're also going to be talking about the Certified Aging in Place Specialist certification. And so we've got a guest speaker, Steve Hoffaker, with us here. And we're really glad to have him. He also led a webinar for us last summer, so some of you may have already met him, which is great. Melanie Campbell works closely with me on this project. Unfortunately, she is unavailable today. She's actually at a retreat for her other job, which is with Rebuild Upstate, one of our members. They're having a staff retreat today, so she's not able to be here. But if you participate in the cohort, she'll be a part of the leadership for that as well. Let's see here. So hi, we're not going to go around and have everybody introduce themselves because we've got a pretty good crowd today, but I would love to have you all introduce yourselves in the chat box if you don't mind. If you could do your organization, your job title, and also your location, that will give you all a chance to get to know each other just a little bit here, and also for Steve to get to know who you all are. That would be great. And I wanted to start out by just sharing a really brief background on why we're offering this cohort and where the idea came from. Last February, I think it was, we did a survey of our members and asked what your plans are for the next few years, what sorts of programs you're interested in growing, starting, that sort of thing. And we were surprised and pleased to find that Aging in Place programs was the #1 cited program area that our members wanted to either start or increase. And so it was about 71% of our members say they wanted to increase their work on aging in place repairs or start a program for the first time. So that is great. Let's see here. If you all could mute yourselves, unless you have a question later, you can unmute. That would be great. I just hear a little bit of background noise. Great. Thank you all so much. Yeah, also I wanted to mention the difference between our affinity groups and our cohorts. So we have a number of affinity groups that meet regularly, and it's kind of a group of our members who care about the same thing and meet on a semi-regular basis to talk about it. They're fairly informal, so our affinity groups are free. Members can join whenever they want to, whenever they're able to, whereas our cohorts are a little bit more time intensive. They're also time limited. And they do require a commitment to fully participate. And then there's either a registration fee or some of them are grant funded and then you're actually paid to participate. But we have some grant reporting requirements. So it's a little bit more intentional and intensive than our affinity groups. And we are so excited to be able to offer this one thanks to a grant that we received. So we spent quite a bit of time last year figuring out how we wanted to address the Aging in Place program requests that we heard from our members. And so we applied for several different grants and looked at several different training programs before we figured out the best fit for us. And so we were really thrilled to be awarded a grant from the RRF Foundation for Aging. We received a grant of about $53,000 to launch this brand new Aging in Place cohort. And so one of the best parts of the grant is that it's going to allow us to fund 42 of our members to become certified aging in place specialists. That's the CAPS designation. And that training costs about $1,000. So it's a bit expensive. And so we're really thrilled to be able to fund that. And Steve Hoffaker, who's here with us, is a CAPS trainer. And so we're excited to partner with him and to have a lot of you go through his training this year. So you'll hear more about that in a little bit. But we're just really grateful to RRF for funding this new cohort. I think it's really going to provide a solid foundation for nonprofits who offer aging in place programs across the country. And ultimately, it's going to help more older adults to age in their community in a safe and affordable home. So I'm going to start out by talking through a bit of the curriculum for the cohort, so you could know what to expect there. I'm going to talk about the schedule, how to apply to participate in the cohort, and then we'll talk about the CAPS certification, and Steve will share about that there. So our goal for the cohort is to educate nonprofits on the best practices in home repairs and modifications for low-income older Americans, and to increase the capacity of the cohort participants to secure funding for those home modifications. And so we're combining the CAPS certification curriculum with a separate curriculum that we have devised that we think will really address the unique challenges that are faced by home repair nonprofits. It's about a 10-month program. It'll start next month in February, and it'll conclude at our conference in November. And so there's 5 different sessions besides the CAPS training, and those 5 sessions are each 90-minute in length. So we have the cohort schedule here, and this will be provided to you afterwards via email, so don't feel like you need to hurry and write this down or screenshot it. But our very first training is going to be on February 24th, and I'm really excited about this one. It's going to be led by the Gerontological Society of America, that's GAS. And they're going to help us to improve our understanding of what aging means and the many different ways that older people contribute to our society. And the training relies on tested strategies and evidence-informed tools that they have found that really helps to reduce the implicit bias against older people. So I don't know if some of you I know have attended our anti-racism webinars in the last couple of years. And to me, it kind of reminds me of that it's going to help us kind of uncover the implicit biases that we have and figure out how to actively work against that. And so we're also going to learn how to speak more inclusively about our clients. I'm going to drop a link in the chat box to their website. They have a website called reframingaging.org, and there's a lot of really great information there, and that's the training that they'll be giving us. Let's see here. Get that in the chat box real quick. Great. So that's going to be our very first session of the cohort. And also I wanted to mention that the Gerontological Society is actually going to be providing training and technical assistance to our coalition staff throughout the course of the cohort to help us make sure that everything that we're doing aligns with their work and that they think that it really is going to provide you all with the best resources. Let's see, our second session is going to be about the ethics of serving low-income older adults. So we're going to be exploring the unique ethical issues that face home repair programs, and will be based on case studies. There'll be a lot of discussion. Again, we'll have an external speaker. That one's not identified quite yet, but they will lead that session. And then after that second session, after March 24th, our cohort participants will be eligible to sign up for the CAPS class. So you could take that 3-day CAPS training that we'll hear more about in a bit, anytime between March 24th through the end of September. And you'll be able to do that in your own schedule, whatever month, days of the week works best for you. But we do want to make sure everybody gets through those first 2 sessions with us together first. We'll have a third session in April, which will be an overview of programs and funding. We're going to hear from at least 4 different coalition members and friends about their unique program models, their client applications, how they prioritize those, how they deliver repairs and modifications. It'll be a very peer kind of roundtable sort of session. We will take a break during the summer, since that tends to be the busiest time for our members with home repairs. But you could do your CAPS training over the summer if that's a good time for you. Our fourth session will be in September. It'll be looking at the bigger picture, basically opportunities for local and national advocacy, and we'll have a guest speaker talking about trends and issues that face older adults at a national scale. And so the goal for that session is to help us talk about, gain a greater understanding of how our home repairs and modifications fit into that larger scale of solutions for older adults, and also how you could get involved in advocacy. Let's see here. There is going to be some homework throughout the cohort. We'll give some assignments before and between sessions, nothing that will take too long to complete, probably an hour or 2 at the most. But there's going to be one big project that the cohort will work on together, and that is going to be to create an addendum for our existing best practices guide. So we're going to create a section of a few pages that will specifically address home modifications and serving older adults. And so we'll be breaking up into smaller subgroups to work on that. And then our October meeting is our final cohort meeting. We'll be finalizing that best practices guide addendum. And then some members of our cohort will be presenting that at our annual conference in November. So I'm going to pause here. I know I've talked a lot, given you a lot of information, and I'm wondering if anybody has any questions so far. Nothing yet? Okay. All right. I cannot easily see the chat box while I'm talking and sharing my screen. So if you do have a question that you want addressed on a particular slide, please just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask a question so I don't miss that. Let's see here. I am going to post a link to the application in the chat box here real quick. And then I will just talk a bit more about the application and what it entails. So for most of our events, it's just a quick registration form. You put in your name and that sort of thing, but there actually is a longer application for this cohort, and that is because it is grant funded and the RRF Foundation has certain things that they want to make sure happen during the cohort. And we're also using the application as kind of a pre-survey for those who are participating, and then there'll be some post-survey as well. So the application is due 2 weeks from today on January 21st. We're going to select our participants within 10 days after that, so you'll be able to hear really quickly whether or not you're in. We have 42 participant slots available. We don't have really any idea of how much interest there will be, but we're hoping to fill all of those slots. And it will be possible to have multiple people from one organization participate. So feel free to have several staff apply. I will say that if more than 42 organizations apply, we will have a preference for including as many organizations as possible. So it's possible in that case that maybe just one of your folks would be picked. But please feel free to go ahead and have multiple people apply. And by submitting the application, you are committing to participate for the full duration of the cohort, to attend all the meetings that we just talked about. We do expect you to attend the sessions live unless there's an extenuating circumstance and you notify us about that. Some of our sessions may not be recorded or parts of the sessions. It really depends on the speaker and what they allow us to do. So we really want to make sure everybody plans on being there in person. And also participating means that you are going to agree to submit some post surveys for us, and that's actually going to need to happen annually for about 2 years. So I know it's hard to make a commitment for things that happen as far as 2024, but we promise they'll be short, simple. The post surveys will take no more than 20 minutes to complete. The goal is basically to figure out whether this cohort really did make an impact on your programs, if you were able to help more older adults because of what you learned through the program. And you don't need to be a member of the Coalition for Home Repair to apply to participate in the cohort. So feel free to apply even if you're not a member yet. However, being a coalition member is required to participate in the cohort. So if we select you to be in it and you're not yet a member, we'll ask you to join then in order to be a part of the cohort. And at the very end of this webinar, we'll offer a bit of information about our membership dues and our membership benefits for anybody who's not yet a member who's thinking about joining. We would love to have you. So there is a fee to participate in the cohort. You don't need to pay it at the time of application. We'll notify you later if you are chosen to be in the cohort. There'll be a $100 registration fee, and that will be due February 18th. And if you are selected, again, we will cover that $1,000 CAPS certification and training fee. So definitely a financial benefit of participating. What you will receive will be valued at much more than the $100. Does anybody have any questions about the basics of the application? I'll briefly go over the 2 different parts of it as well. So there's 2 parts to the application. The first is just some organization details. We need that for each organization that's applying, and that will help us prioritize which organizations will be selected for the cohort. It also gives us some of that programmatic evaluation that we need for our grant funder. So we recommend that you have a grant writer or a program officer complete that part of the application. It shouldn't take very long. I'd say 15 or 20 minutes at the most. And so there's a list here of what sorts of things you'll need in order to complete that part of the application, basically some numbers that we're asking for. And then there's a second part that the individual person who wants to participate in the cohort needs to complete. It's very short. It should take 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes if you're a slow typer. Just a little bit of more personal information about you. So if you have multiple people in your organization applying, they can, and they know that they're the second person or third person applying, they can skip that organizational details part and just fill out that short applicant details at the end. I know we have had a few people go through the application process already. Haven't heard any questions so far. Do any of you have any questions right now? You can feel free to unmute yourself if you do. All right. Hearing none, I'm going to move on. We are seeking a cohort facilitator who will work with our staff to help guide this group over the next 10 months or so. They'll take attendance at meetings, help us schedule some of our guest speakers. They're going to be the coordinator for that addendum to the best practices guide that we're going to be putting together. So we estimate it'll take about 50 hours of work across the 10 different months. We actually don't have any meetings during the summer, so it'll average out to be about 8 hours per month for the 6 months that we have active meetings. So February through April and then September through November. The facilitator is going to be paid $1,250, half of that in June and half in November. And that payment could either go to their nonprofit employer, or if the employer is okay with it, the individual could be paid directly. And so it's a real simple process. If you're at all interested in that position, there's just a little checkbox on the very final question on the application. And then we'll just have a real quick conversation with anybody who's interested and pick somebody to help us out. Does anybody have any questions about the cohort facilitator position? Okay. Well, I am excited to have Steve Huffaker here with us to talk about CAPS. I'll turn it over to him in just a minute here. Wanted to share for those who are not familiar that the Certified Aging in Place Specialist designation, it's a joint program between the National Association of Home Builders and the AARP. So it's a very widely recognized certification. And it really helps people taking the class to understand what folks, all adults or people of any age, I think, need to enjoy and function well in their living space by creating an accessible environment for any age or any ability. So what you would learn in that is not just applicable to helping older adults, but really to everybody. And our cohort participants will be able to choose if they would like to take Steve Huffaker's classes, which are online. Or if you have a different trainer who's maybe in your local area, you can attend in person, that's fine as well. We can fund that instead. And the coalition will pay for the training and certification up to $1,000. And it's typically 3 days of training. It can be 3 consecutive days, but it doesn't have to be. That's up to you, how you want to take that. And I am going to drop another link in the chat box for you. This is the training schedule that Steve offers. And I am now going to turn it over to you, Steve, if you want to introduce yourself and share a bit more about your trainings.
Thanks, Becca. Good being with everyone today. I don't know if I've met you previously or not, but hello, Happy New Year. Good to see everyone. Yes, I have been doing the Certified Aging in Place Specialist program as an instructor for 15 years. Prior to that, I have a master's in sociology. I've been an urban planner. I've worked with builders. So for the past several decades, without going into more detail, I have been involved in some phase of housing rehab, housing evaluation, working with consumers, working with builders. And now I'm really excited about this program, having been affiliated with it now, as I say, for 15 years. I've educated hundreds of people from around the US and other nations as well. So it's not just a US program, Canada, I've had every continent except Antarctica, and I'm not sure how many people live on Antarctica, but other than that, I've had people from every other continent in the last couple of years. The online program is great because you can take it from where you are. You can take it together. Each one needs to be registered separately, but if you want to take it collectively from one computer monitor, you may. You can take it as someone is driving for you. If you have to be at a meeting, we've had this happen where someone has been the passenger and has taken it on their iPhone while someone else is driving for them. We've had children, we've had aging parents that the person taking the class was the caregiver and the watchful eyes for that individual. We've had pets, so we've had a range of situations that really cannot be accommodated at in-person classes. So we're real happy for that. As Becca was saying, you can split it up. I do recommend, because of the way the classes are structured, that you take them 1, 2, and 3 in that order, but you can take one this week, if there was one this week, and one the next week, or skip a couple of weeks, skip a month. I wouldn't wait really long, but I've had people take them like a year apart, but that's really stretching it. But you can split it up as you need to, as your schedule dictates. Now, the program itself, as Becca was saying, it's a joint venture between the National Association of Home Builders. And no, you don't have to be a builder member. We have many people who are occupational therapists, physical therapists, designers, and nonprofit organizations. We have some CILs. Are any of you a Center for Independent Living? Okay. Habitat, we had several Habitat individuals and many other organizations who take the classes. So if you're a builder, great. If you're not, that's fine as well. But it's a 3-day course that the home builders have put together in conjunction with AARP. Also, there are some other powerful organizations who back this program and encourage their members to take the CAPS and give CE credit if they do. And that's the NKBA, the National Kitchen and Bath Association, the AIA, American Institute of Architects, AOTA, American Occupational Therapy Association, APTA, American Physical Therapy Association, AIBD, American Institute of Building Design. So those all are very powerful membership organizations, professional bodies that encourage their members. So you have, in addition to what knowledge your marketplace may have and your potential consumers, you've got these other organizations helping to drive that knowledge in marketplace. And AARP is a great resource. They constantly are encouraging people to modify their homes, to stay in them safely. The whole aging in place phenomena is largely driven by what they're producing. So it's all good. Over the 3 days, we're going to cover what is aging in place, who's part of it, how's this market changing. We'll get into some demographics. We'll get into some ways that you can connect with other people in the marketplace. So you're not in this by yourself. And I'm really heartened by the fact that your focus is a lot on people of lower incomes with lesser means. I always make the point that if we have a lot of money, if we have a higher end client, it doesn't take as much to do a modification. Like, it's a little easier. It doesn't take as much strategy, thought process necessarily as it does with figuring out how we're going to do something for an individual of modest means. And where do we start first? Where's their most important urgent need? And we prioritize, and we talk about that. What to look for first, second. Now, primarily we're looking at things that are safe in the home, whether it's lighting, whether it's flooring and their footing, keeping them from falling in their homes, getting in and out of the home safely, getting in and out of their bath and into bed. We won't go into a lot of detail because we only have 3 days, but each of those could be much, much longer. But that's, in essence, the approach we take. That's the first day. And again, we look at where you can find strategic partners in the marketplace to work with. And then the second day, we get into some regulations that are important to understand, and then a lot of specific designs. And again, I tailor my description more to the lower cost, lower end design. Uh, there are higher ones out there. We reference those, but I want you to be aware that you can do things for a fairly modest amount of money when someone has a unlimited budget. And the third day is an application day where we take everything we've learned in the first 2 days. We have 4 case studies that we look at what's been done, and we analyze those, and we apply our knowledge, and we see if we agree or disagree or how we would apply what we know differently than what the book has to say. So that in essence is that. Plus you're going to make connections with many people from around the globe that you can reach out to through me or directly as you need to, as you have a question. If you have if you encountered something like this in the past, I'm facing this, what do you recommend? So things like that. So I don't want to occupy all of the time that I had just by talking. So let me open it up to questions. Anyone?
You might be wondering how we found Steve, and I'll tell you, he comes very highly recommended. One of our board members, Lynette Farhart with Project Houseworks out in Nebraska, took Steve's training, and she called me immediately afterward, just raving. She said, I was worried about taking a 3-day online training. I thought I would be bored out of my mind. How would I be able to focus on the Zoom screen for 8 hours, 3 days in a row? And she said, honestly, it was wonderful. And she really enjoyed the whole process, that he was an excellent trainer. I've talked to several other people who've taken his classes since then. So I'm excited to have more of our folks take the training. Again, you don't have to use Steve, but we do recommend him just because it's comes highly recommended. It's kind of easy. He offers classes almost every single week.
I'd be honored to have you join me. And as far as that's a great point too about the online. A lot of people, when they hear online or virtual, have an idea of what that is, because there's a lot of continuing education classes where you sit in front of the screen and it's recorded and you watch it like you're watching a television program. Or it's the same, it's if not recorded, there's a script that someone's reading. I will say that even though we follow the book and even though the slides are essentially the same class to class, the material is not. So what you'll hear today or the next time might vary slightly than it did what was presented the time before, based simply by the audience and what you all want to know and the questions you ask. So there's a lot of dynamics that are part of the class. So it's anything but boring, I would say. It's going to keep you on your toes. Also, if you were seated in a classroom, there's a tendency to get a little zoned out, let's say. You might think that's the case online, but you have to pay attention more, I found, in this kind of format than you do if you're just sitting there. You can kind of hide your emotions. You can kind of shield your eyes. You can kind of sit behind someone else and kind of be there, but not really participate. It's much more difficult to do that in this kind of online format.
Y'all are so quiet today. Does anybody have any personal experience with CAPS? Does anybody?
January, it's Friday.
Yes.
I get that, but yeah, any questions?
Had you all heard of CAPS before we started talking about it at the coalition? Do you know people who are CAPS certified?
Let me tell you this. That's a good one. I get this week so far, I've gotten 2 telephone calls from consumers looking to find a CAPS contractor to do something in their home. Because of my visibility online, they reached out to me. I've had people report to me that they have been contacted by a tradesperson or someone in the community saying, are you CAPS trained? I want a CAPS trained contractor to do this for me. I have someone coming to my first class this year that they needed to take the CAPS, and they were a little disappointed that it wasn't offered sooner than it is, because they said, I gotta get this. My contractor needs me to have this so we can work together. So you will get that. There is a lot of prominence with this designation in the marketplace.
And it is an individual certification, so it's not going to be your organization that is CAPS
That's a great
certified.
point.
It would be your staff that would be. I just want to make sure that that was clear. You could absolutely market it as, you know, you are a nonprofit that serves older adults and you have staff that are CAPS certified, but it's not an organizational designation.
Additionally, let's say you had a staff, you've got a very large staff, probably not as much, but if you have a staff, 3, 4, 5 people, and they're all CAPS trained, then you could market yourself, not the organization, but you're an organization of all CAPS trained individuals, and you could certainly do that. And that's a very strong statement.
Yeah, I personally have been looking into the CAPS certification for probably 2 years, so I'm fairly familiar with it, but just have not made that commitment to actually take the class yet. So I'm super excited. Something
Steve, I got to tell you, you're in great company. I can't tell you the number of times I hear a similar story. I've been looking at this for the longest one I think is like 8 years, but I've been looking at this for 2 years, 3 years, and just haven't pulled the trigger yet. So you're in good company when it comes to that. Plus, I think the market is much more receptive of the designation and really looking for people who have this. So your timing is good.
So a question, I suppose, outside of using it for advertising and stuff. So we do a lot of work with older adults currently. Probably about 85% of our homeowners we serve are older adults.
Sure.
So kind of my interest for taking it is to be able to serve them better, not so much advertise. I mean, obviously it'll be good to have for, you know, just to have for that purpose, but the ultimate goal is to try to be able to serve our homeowners better. Is it?
Absolutely.
I mean, is the class going to help with that?
Absolutely, yes. Big focus on older adults, aging abilities. We talk about sensory changes, mobility and cognitive changes as people age, getting in and out of structures and, like I say, bathing and so forth. Also, a lot of people take the CAPS because they don't have a specific professional need. They kind of do, but they really are concerned about their aging parents. They're taking it for their own selfish, if you will, needs, because they say, you know, my mom needs this, or just is thinking of moving and I want to be able to offer assistance. So you're taking it for personal knowledge as well as professional. And I've had people take it just for personal knowledge with no intent of ever doing anything. And then one day they may evolve into that. So that's both facets.
Thank you.
Steve, there's a question in the chat box from Megan. She's wondering if the best person to take the class, would it be a construction focused person?
Not necessarily. As I said, when the class was first launched, I think the emphasis was on contractors, remodelers, and builders. But my personal experience, professional and personal, is that OTs, PTs, designers, nonprofits, government offices, a lot of even Social Security, Medicare. I've had so many different professions take this. And no, if you're in construction, great, you will learn a lot. If you're not in construction, same thing goes. You'll learn a lot, and you'll also learn a little bit maybe about what goes on or how you can do something construction-wise that you didn't understand or appreciate. Maybe you'll want to make a suggestion, and as you begin working with a contractor 2, 3, 4 years from now, you're in a situation where you're in someone's home or you're having a preliminary discussion, and you say, well, this is what I'd like to do for the client, or this is what the client expresses as a need they have, and say, well, what if we did this and this and this? And you're speaking at it now with construction knowledge or terminology that you didn't have prior to that.
So Steve, for most of our nonprofits, there's an executive director, there's maybe a volunteer manager, there's the construction manager, there might also be an intake person. Would you see all of those roles as benefiting from taking the class?
Yes, I really think so. Now, if someone were strictly in accounting or behind the scenes, not so much. But if you've got any kind of direct client contact or being a participant in a team meeting or any kind of planning, any kind of interface in the field with someone, I would recommend it.
I would also say that I would imagine that probably your organization would get more out of it if you're able to have 2 people participate, and if our numbers allow that, because I think then if you have 2 people who've gone through it, talk about it together, figure out how to apply it, hold each other accountable for actually implementing what you learn. So maybe the construction manager, whoever does, the initial home visits, and then also the executive director or another program staff. I think it would probably be really great to have 2 people, if possible.
Yeah, maybe your executive director or not so much because they are more program oriented or in an executive function, but anybody who has a direct client interface, absolutely.
Great.
I mean, I didn't mean to diss any executive directors.
That is helpful clarification. Thank you. What other questions do you all have about CAPS for Steve?
Dee Dee, it looks like you have a question. No? Okay,
you're muted there.
Okay.
Dee Dee, you're muted. We can't hear you, Dee Dee.
Sorry, I was just waving, but I was just thinking from the field of executive director and program director, those roles, would this be beneficial in for those of us that seek grants and then would have the ability to speak to that in the grant request and stuff?
I think it would help in grant writing. First of all, knowing which grants to go after and using the right language and terminology and talking about successes that you've had in working in the field with individuals. Program director, absolutely. Executive director in terms of understanding what the program's all about and what your staff has experienced, depending on the size of your staff. So I wouldn't say no, it's not for executive directors. I would just say first priority might be to get some of your team qualified, but certainly you can come along. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Steve about CAPS? Okay. I will make sure you all have Steve's contact information. So if you think of something afterwards, you can follow up with him directly.
Yeah, and I would say too, if there's any questions, like you just didn't feel like raising a question today or half an hour from now, say, should have asked, go to my website. I have an FAQ page where I talk about many things like, do you have to be a contractor, and what about this, and who takes the classes, and what's the benefit? I talk about that. There is the list, the schedule of classes. Essentially, when I get started on the 19th, we take a break the first week of February, or second week of February, and then it runs straight through. So I have like 43 weeks of classes during 2022. And anything else that is a concern or an issue, there's testimonials, there's lots of things on there. So that's why the website was put together, so make use of it.
Great. Well, thanks, Steve, for being with us here today. Really helpful information. I just have a couple.
I hope to see you again.
Yes, definitely. I just have one other quick topic I wanted to address with you all before I talk about coalition membership for any of our non-members. But in case you aren't aware, we also have a Healthy Homes Affinity group, and this group has been meeting for the last 2.5 years. We have been meeting quarterly, and for the most part, it's been fairly informal. The goal has been to share information about measuring health-related outcomes related to home repairs, so hospital partnerships, how to determine whether the repairs you're doing are actually reducing falls and therefore reducing the number of emergency room visits and medical care savings, that kind of thing. But I'm really excited about the group right now because it has suddenly gained a lot of momentum and it's kicking into high gear. We're now having monthly meetings with interim meetings of a small team of leaders. And the reason is that we have decided to work together with a group of about a dozen of our members right now to do some shared data collection related to falls prevention. And we're working with the Homes Renewed Resource Center, and we're going to come up with a short number of questions. I'm hoping it is 10 or fewer questions that our members who choose to participate will be collecting some data before, during, and after home repairs take place. And then we'll be able to share the results with each other. We're going to be comparing them to national statistics of hospitalization. And our hope is that we're going to get some really great data showing exactly what the cost saving is for our work, which we think will be able to be used for excellent grant and funding opportunities to get a lot more resources to show that, what we do really does matter, not only to the individual who's receiving home repairs and to their family, but also, frankly, to every taxpayer in the country and to the government. And because, once we're able to help reduce those medical costs, it really saves everybody. So we're in the process of finalizing that survey. We're going to schedule a meeting before the end of the month. The date isn't set yet, but that group is working along very similar lines as Aging in Place. Most of the healthy home stuff we're focusing on right now relates to home modifications for older adults. So I want to make sure you all were aware of that group as well. For those of you who are members, I'm glad you were here today. You don't have to stick around for the last part. You're welcome to if you want, but before you leave, there is a link in the chat box to a super short webinar survey. Please take a minute to fill that out. We'll give away a $25 Lowe's gift card to somebody who completes it. We'll just randomly pick somebody on Monday. So please fill that out. Let me know if you have any questions about the cohort or the application. Again, the application's due on the 21st. We'd love to see all of you apply and maybe some of your coworkers as well. So I hope you'll have a great weekend. If you're not yet a coalition member, please stick around for just a couple more minutes. I'd love to share with you a little bit about what is involved in joining the coalition. So have a great weekend, everybody. We are really excited to have some folks who are not yet members of the coalition be here with us today. So thank you. And first of all, I just want to make sure you all knew what the membership dues look like for the coalition. We're now in 2022, so the new dues column is what takes effect here. And we feel like our membership dues are super affordable, especially considering all the benefits that you get. The membership dues are based on the size of your organization or your budget, the number of employees or your budget size, I should say. And you can pick the smaller of the two if you'd like. Although I will add that now we have a great benefit of our members do get a Lowe's gift card, and the higher your membership dues category, the bigger the gift card you get. And so it goes the other way too. If you would like to choose to pay into a larger organization size than maybe you even are, that is fine, and you're eligible for a bigger Lowe's gift card as well. And the gift card will come in February or March. What happens is we have a short impact report we ask our members to participate in. I think it's about 30 questions this year. It asks things like, how many homes did you repair last year? How many older adults did you serve? How many veterans? That kind of thing. And as soon as we get that impact report back from you, we're able to give you the Lowe's gift card. So it's about 2.5 times the cost of membership dues. So if you're not yet a member, it's a really great way to recoup that amount of membership dues right away. And then of course, if you're participating in our Aging in Place cohort, that's $100 to participate, but you get that $1,000 CAPS training. So the actual benefit of membership is much greater than the financial. However, I would say probably the biggest benefit that our members talk about is just the networking opportunities, a great way to meet other organizations that are doing similar work that you can connect with, ask your questions, share best practices. Our members are eligible to receive free access to Procore, which is a project management software tool that a lot of contractors pay close to $700 a month for. So it's a really valuable tool that you're able to get for free as a coalition member. We have webinars every month that are free for members. We have a resource library It has lots of documents. There's sample forms, templates, construction manuals, volunteer waivers. There's rental agreement addendum templates, pretty much anything you could think of relating to home repairs for low-income people. We have a video library with recordings of all of our past webinars and a lot of our conference sessions as well. Excuse me, I'm just gonna get a drink of water real quick. Our members get a discount for our annual conference every November. And we have a lot of other discounts as well. We have a partnership with a group purchasing network that gives you discounts at Lowe's, at food service providers if you are the camp model and need to feed volunteers. We have some networking groups on Facebook that are only accessible by our members. And we're adding new benefits all the time. So our goal really is to resource you and to help you do what you do better, both through education and through financial resources, such as the CAPS training. I will close my share here so I can see you all better, but I'm wondering if anybody has any questions for me about Coalition membership. We started as Reframe, I should say that, about 10 years ago, started as a conference, a regional conference, and then incorporated as Reframe Association back in 2013, and then also as Reframe Foundation in 2018, and we just rebranded back in November as the Coalition for Home Repair. So we have about 90 different organizations all across the country that are part of our network right now. And we're growing really quickly because there's just so much need out there, and we can do what we do better if we're doing it together. So one other thing I forgot to mention is advocacy is another emphasis of ours. So we try to stay connected with anything happening in Washington related to home repairs. Our emphasis over the last year has been a USDA program. It's their 504 grant and loan program for rural, very low income homeowners. And so we're continuing to look at that as there's some funds in the Build Back Better Act. And we work with partners like Habitat's Advocacy Office. We work with the National Low Income Housing Coalition, the Housing Assistance Council, Rebuilding Together. And so we are just really passionate about and concerned about anything related to home repair. So anybody have any questions about anything? Well, thank you all for sticking it out with me to the very end. Make sure you take our super short webinar survey. I'll drop that link in the chat box again. You'll get a chance at a $25 Lowe's gift card. And if you do think of anything, feel free to shoot me an email, text me, call me. I'd be glad to talk with anybody anytime. Well, have a great weekend, you all. Stay warm. It was great to see you. Thanks for hanging out with me this Friday afternoon.